Coming up on this week's edition of Sunday Nation, the economy and inflation. How should businesses, or what are businesses saying about the economy and inflation after the midterm? We have John Bodary, the CEO of Woods Construction, Kenny Akinwale, the CEO of the Q Group, here to talk to us. And then we have Crystal Rice from the Black Business Economic Exchange, also about the fate of black businesses in this economy of inflation. Then later on, Damon Autry will talk to us, the African-American researcher, about African-American participation in the auto industry. And then my conversation with Lionel Bradford, the president of Greening of Detroit, on the new green economy and an ambitious plan to plant 75,000 trees here in Detroit. All coming up on this week's edition of Sunday Nation. I'm Bankole Thompson. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Sunday Nation, here to talk about the economy, inflation after the midterms. It's John Bodary, he's the president and CEO of Woods Construction, and Kenny Akinwale, the president and CEO of the Q Group. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
You know, I wanted you in here because I wanted to talk about the economy, inflation, business, and how you all are responding to inflation. Now, some of us obviously, you know, at the gas, the price of gas at the pump has gone down in the wake of the midterm election result. But as a business executive, where you have to sign off, you know, you're signing payrolls and so forth, people working under you. How are you coping, or how are you dealing with the inflation? Is it as bad as people are saying?
I appreciate the question, Bankole.
Yeah.
It's a very unique time. Coming
Right.
out of the pandemic, with global material shortages,
Yes.
and now as you talk about with the midterm
Right.
Inflation, it's a very unique time. But we look at it as an opportunity to sort of pause and reflect, and then really to reinvest and to respond.
Right.
So that's our approach right now. It's sort of cautious,
Okay.
but then optimistic at the same time.
Yeah. Kenny, what about you?
So for us, it's pretty tough.
Right.
If you're in the hospitality industry, you know as well as I know the price of goods is going way up.
Right.
So now the challenge we have as an industry is balancing how do we stay alive in the interim, because that's the challenge we have. So we have three options. You can raise the price on your customers, which is not really very encouraging for us.
Because they're being affected by the inflation as well.
Exactly. So you have to understand that.
Right.
You don't want to reduce the quality of the product that you're serving. That's another thing.
Right.
So what do you have left? So you have labor, which is one of the highest costs of your line items. So what you have to do is figure out how to, what we call cross-training. So you have one person do 2 or 3 jobs at the same time to keep people on the job, to keep them on payroll, because they have to feed their family. So that's the challenge we've been. So what we've been doing is making sure that we don't gouge our customers, at the same time making sure that we stay afloat until this wave we can ride it through and survive it. The other option available to the industry is hopefully get some infuse of loan to be able to carry you over but it hasn't been easy for us.
So let me follow through with that, though, because it's very interesting the way you just unveiled that, the labor and having one individual having, you know, taking on 3 assignments. You don't want to raise the price on your customers and so forth. Yes. But given your experience as a longtime executive in the hospitality industry, is this the worst of times?
This is one of the most challenging times in a long time.
Yeah.
I will tell you that. Because we haven't seen...
Because we've seen restaurants disappeared. I mean, with
Absolutely.
COVID. Yeah.
But what we have, and some of us survived thanks to
Right.
the intervention of the government,
Right.
the PPP loan.
Right.
So that helps quite a bit.
Right.
So the challenge we have now, how do we keep our staff? We clearly can't bring any more staff on board. So what we have to do is be very skilled and smart on how we're training our staff. So for example, if you're a chef, so you have to learn, we used to have an executive chef, a sous chef, a regular cook. Now, an executive chef now will do what a sous chef does. And
That's interesting.
And a cook will learn how to clean after themselves.
Right.
Not relying on the dishwasher.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
You know, and sometimes a manager may have to serve
Right.
the guest. So those are the ways.
So you just laid out the anatomy of the hospitality industry here.
That's right.
John, you're in the construction business, which is very, very significant in Michigan in terms of the construction economy and so forth. How are you dealing? I mean, let's open the anatomy of the construction business.
So it's a little bit different. I wish we could have
inflation.
Yeah, I wish we could have a carpenter do 3 tasks at one time.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you know, our people are not in a position where they're waiting for someone else to finish a task, and so we don't have that ability. It is an opportunity though for partnership with our clients, because if I could borrow from, I believe it's an African proverb. Rain does not fall on one roof.
Right.
Right. And so when this happens, it's happened to everyone in the industry, and many of our clients also provide materials. And so they're also going through the same thing that we are with,
Right.
with shortages and
Right.
with price increases.
Right.
So now we can partner with them and say, okay, how do we work on problem solving this together? Rather than us just raising our prices and they say, why are you raising them? Their prices are also going up for the things they're buying. Our prices are going up. So now we can problem solve and say, you know, is there a way to find a different material? Is there a way to work around this? So it's really an opportunity for us to partner with these clients then.
But you also have to get materials to do you know, and I'm just thinking now in terms of when you have to purchase materials to work on certain projects. What's the price?
It's a huge challenge because
Right.
sometimes even at any price,
Right.
the material's not available.
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
and so that really is a problem. And we've had some clients that have just been very understanding, very awesome, where they say, okay, we're going to have you stay on this project until the material comes, and you work on other things until it gets here, at some expense to them as well.
But with the way that the inflation has weighed heavily on our economy, have you had to lay people off?
Fortunately, Bankole, we've been pretty fortunate.
Okay.
We've made an investment in some cases to hold on to people,
Right.
And fortunately, we've had very little turnover. I
Right.
know that's a different situation than,
Yeah, yeah.
than what Kenny is in right now.
Right.
But for us, it's a little different situation. But we're also in need of future employees too. So as you know, we're doing some things to recruit there.
So,
as
so
well.
I'm curious though, for the two of you here, we cannot talk about inflation in the economy absent of COVID, because COVID has had an impact here on business.
Yes.
What, in hindsight, if both of you saw COVID 2 years from now, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, in hindsight, what would you have done differently in the business that you're in the construction business, in the hospitality business? If you had a dream that COVID was going to come 3 years ago, I mean, what would you do differently?
Get a Zoom account quicker, right?
You know what I've been saying? Whoever created Zoom is making zillions out of it. But go ahead. What would you have done differently?
You know, that's a really good question. It's not one that I rehearsed or planned for.
Yes.
You know, it's one of those things like jumping into the deep end. How could we have planned for that? Because see, our projects are all over the country.
Right.
And the country was affected in different ways in different places.
Right.
And so I don't know what we could have done differently.
Yeah.
I think it was responding at the time as quick as we could.
Yeah.
And certainly we have protocols in place now in terms of hygiene and all of that,
Right.
that we would be ahead of.
Right.
But I'm not sure how much we could have planned differently.
So
Kenny.
for us, if you go back to COVID,
Right.
you know how scary it was for everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
people don't know what to expect. But to answer your question, if I had that dream 2 or 3 years ahead of time, how would have pivoted the industry, the standard that we use, and focus strictly on home delivery?
Really?
So what we call touchless home delivery, non-contact. So the way it's going to work is I have a need for the kitchen. They'll prepare the food, cook the food under a very sanitary condition, like they always do. And then have it ready. The guest call or go online and place the order. We get the ticket, we make the food, the driver comes in and we make they don't get out of their car, and then we make a contact with them without really touching.
Right.
We hand them the product, and then they do the same thing. That would have been the choice, because if you look at it during that time, delivery was huge.
Yes,
So you have companies like Uber, DoorDash.
That is true.
They were making a killing on that.
Right.
So, and a lot of people they needed to eat, they needed to find a way.
Right.
So to me, that would have been something to do.
Right.
Remember in the early days, we left cardboard boxes in the garage for 3 days though, right?
Exactly.
So what do you leave your food there? But we've learned a lot since then.
Absolutely. So those are the kind of things that you probably get yourself more educated on what are the goods and the bads of COVID, and then figure out a way to develop a concept that works for you as well as for the...
I want to ask you, and I know neither of you are politicians, but I want to ask a political question here, because the inflation in the economy has been used as a political football by politicians of all stripes and political persuasions. The question, though, is, and politicians are not the best experts in business, right? So they do, require advice from those who are in the business community, entrepreneurs and so forth. For Michigan here, what would you advise the new administration, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and advise, of course, Washington as well, President Joe Biden, in terms of dealing with this inflation in the economy here in Michigan? You're both Michigan-based businesses. You're here, your investment is here, and you have people working for you.
So I think, we need to value mental health in our businesses. We in a way that we never have before. And so I think if government can start appreciating that more,
right.
Then I think that supports our challenges to do that. I think it's, how do we celebrate labor? How do we recognize that things cost money, and that everybody has a right to work, but they also have a right to benefits, insurances, other.
And for me, I think one of the things that I think, looking back, is initially when the COVID was kind of going away, we had a hard time hiring people. And most of and I can tell you personally, there are people who would tell me or tell my staff, my management staff, that, hey, I'm getting more money from the government, why would I want to come and work for you? So we got to figure out a way to balance the two. We have a lot of hardworking folks who are working every day, but then you have people that say, okay, I'm getting this check, you're offering me this money, and I'm not giving you a minimum wage, by the way. I'm giving you $14, $16, $18, $20 an hour.
Okay.
So, but that makes it kind of difficult for the business for a while to be able to get people. But I think as things are dying down, people are coming back into the job market. I think we will figure out a way to balance the two. In other words, figure out a way where, you're going to get this benefit which you deserve.
Right.
But you're going to have to go out and find a job.
Right.
Balance. That's what would be my recommendation.
It's a huge balancing act.
Exactly. And then figure out a way, to me, to your point,
right,
where you got single parents or parents who have a need for like daycare.
Right.
Okay. All right. But we're not paying them enough to be able to give them the benefit because we couldn't afford to.
Right.
So if the government can figure out a way to help them while they're at work, earning their living, as opposed to saying, well, you make this level of money, so you're not qualified. So I would rather sit at home and collect government checks. So we got to figure out the way to change that system,
right,
in which there's still a little bit of benefit for me,
right,
but I'm out here working,
right,
trying to make ends meet.
Right.
So it may be temporary, but at least it helps me get through the day, the month, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that would be my recommendation.
As we round this segment up, the inflation is hitting a lot of people as we speak. Talk about, just briefly, as a business, what is misunderstood about this inflation from your perspective?
That's a good question, Bankole. I'm not sure if I'm prepared to answer that.
Yeah.
Kenny, have you got a good
In
answer
terms
for
of
that?
misunderstanding?
Yeah, what is misunderstood about the inflation and the economy? Because, you know, for a lot of people, they feel it at the pump.
Yeah.
But you're signing paychecks. You're signing, you know.
So one of the things I think is, in my opinion, is
Right.
you have the price of housing going up.
Right.
You have the price of food going up.
Right.
Clothing
Yeah.
going up. So our staff still need help.
That's right.
You know what
Okay.
I mean? They still, people are thinking, you know, people are just collecting money
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
help of it, but they need help.
John, final comments?
I think the only other piece to that, as I thought
Right.
about it, is that there is inflation that affects us all,
Right.
and so we need to. I'm blowing the end of that, Bankole. I
All right.
apologize.
Okay. Thank you so much. John Bodary, the president and CEO of Woods Construction, and Kenny Akinwale, the president and CEO of the Q Group, talking to us here on inflation and the economy. We'll be right back after this break with more on Sunday Nation. Stay with us.